think that given where India is, it's a very unique opportunity that in a generation that we are in, we can imagine India to be poverty free within our lifetimes. Opportunity that I don't think any other generation before us in India's independent history had.
CEO of two, great companies. How do you manage your day?
So that's how I landed up with Nudge and Give India together, and just spend my time across both entities, and depending on the need, sort of allocate time. ISB has a huge role to play in my eventual transition to the social sector. This journey of InMobi was also something I was enjoying a lot, because a part of me enjoys numbers, quarters,
Right.
hockey stick,
Right.
delivering quotas, scaling
Right.
the company. That's when I left InMobi and started the Nudge Foundation. That was 2015.
So how do you look at this change aspect that needs to happen in the society? And what do you think is the role of, companies like you, philanthropists and governments, and even society at large?
Entrepreneurship was actually considered very risky. Like, are you out of your minds to be doing a
You'll
startup?
never
Just
get
do a
married.
good job, you won't get married, तुम्हें नौकरी नहीं मिली college में. But now it's understood that it's high risk, but insanely high return and the fastest way to learn.
Right.
Even a failed entrepreneur is 10x more valuable to any company than a routine job. So I really hope that India evolves from entrepreneurship being the coolest thing to do to social entrepreneurship being the coolest journey. The jobs in the social sector and non-profit sector are not unviable anymore.
Right.
They may not be the path of money maximization,
Right.
but they are still a path of comfortable means and insanely meaningful work with equally complex, if not more complex problems with great joy.
Yes.
What more do you want to
Absolutely.
do with your time? So I don't think this journey would have been possible without ISB or ISBians or ISB classmates.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to ISB Alumni Stories. My name is Abhishek Pagalkot from the PGP class of 2013. Today we have a very special guest for our Alumni Stories, Mr. Atul Sattija from class of 2004. He's been, I'm sure, all over the news in NDTV. You might have seen him more social media. He is the CEO of Give India and also the Nudge Foundation. I'm sure all of us have donated on the Give India website at least once. So thank you so much for making time, Atul, and a very warm welcome you have given us to your wonderful office, such a green place. Thank you so much for welcoming us for this.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for coming here and spending this time with us.
Thank you, thank you. So CEO of two, great companies. Give India is the largest platform out there where people have donated. More than 2 million people have donated, and there are more than 15 million donations on your platform.
Correct.
And then you also run the Nudge. So, how do you manage your day? Because Shailesh, who's our common friend, was telling me you have 48 hours in a day. Is that true?
Yeah, I think the reason why I landed where I did is we were running the Nudge Foundation. We were kind of scaling the work we were doing, skill development, talent to the sector, and I felt there was this big missing piece that the resources required to solve social problems weren't there, and we wanted to bring the capital to the sector, and that's how we sort of came up with the idea of creating a giving platform. And the founder of Give India then chanced upon me. We met each other, and he said, Atul, why are you creating a new platform? I already have something, I've been running it for a while. Why don't you pick this up and take this journey along with the Nudge journey? So that's how I landed up with Nudge and Give India together, and just spend my time across both entities, and depending on the need, sort of allocate time.
Nice. I understand. It's a bit like how Elon Musk took over Tesla in the middle of its journey. So, explain to me, you have, so 98 you finished your engineering from
That's
NIT.
right.
And then after that, I think there was a time that you were a proper engineer. You did sales in Flowserve for a couple of years, and
That's
then you went to ISP. And then you've been in sales all through. You worked as sales for Google, you were head of their business development for mobile platforms, and then you headed sales for InMobi for 5 years.
That's correct.
And that is across India, APAC, and San Francisco.
That's correct.
Post which you changed completely into from the corporate sector to the social sector. So not too many CEOs in the social sector from ISB, or at least founders of the social sector. So how did that happen?
So Abhishek, ISB has a huge role to play in my eventual transition to the social sector. In my final term at ISB, I remember I was sitting for placements, had a campus offer, and this organization called Voxiva from Washington DC was figuring out ways to contribute and avoid the disease spread post tsunami in Chennai. And they were looking for somebody in India to help. And a common friend introduced, and I started serving this organization which was trying to work through IVRS systems, so people can report that they have a disease and you can avoid the outbreak. I started spending time with them during ISB final term in my nights, and they were paying me for that, so it helped pay off the ISB loan a little bit. And I think I enjoyed the impact part of it more than the fact that I had some extra pocket money while at ISB in the final term. And it stayed with me. A part of me growing up wanted to be in the social sector at some point in time. Like all of us think, yeah, retirement ke baad we'll go and do something meaningful. So I grew up with that desire, and I think ISB's final term with this assignment fueled it up a little bit. And I remember I was with Google in 2008 or 9 when I started thinking that I'm entering my 30s, I've never done anything in the social sector. I should start at least volunteering. So I started calling some non-profits over a weekend, opened the newspaper, started calling. And a neighborhood non-profit I discovered, which was doing good work with very good intentions. And I started volunteering with them, and that's how my journey started.
And this was when you were with Google?
That is correct.
Right.
That is
and that is in India?
Well, I think I was doing Monday to Friday for Google between India and Asia Pacific, and weekends used to be mostly here unless I'm traveling beyond the region.
Right.
So I started spending my Saturdays and Sundays with this non-profit in Mewat district at the border of Delhi and Rajasthan, Haryana, Rajasthan. And spending time in rural communities in that district with this non-profit gave me that sort of confidence that this is the right place for me.
Right.
I was not only finding it meaningful, but I was also finding the confidence that I'm adding value.
Right.
And that told me that, look, Atul, this is the right place for you.
Right.
So that's how my journey into the sector started.
Right.
And work brought me to Bangalore. I joined InMobi after my Google stint. In Bangalore, I realized that InMobi was a very fast-growing startup.
Yeah, the first.
And when you are sort of building one of India's early unicorns, it is very high-intensity work. The work was across the region and globally over time. And I was not able to find any time to give back to social work at all. And it was biting me every year. Obviously, this journey of InMobi was also something I was enjoying a lot because a part of me enjoys numbers, quarters,
right.
hockey stick,
right.
Delivering quotas, scaling the company. And while I was doing that, I realized that I was giving myself like a dope that kept me going on numbers. But year-end reflections tell you that, look, this journey is something that you don't want, even though the milestones of the journey you are enjoying. And I think I finished 5.5 years with InMobi and felt that was the right year for me to make the transition.
Right.
So that's when I left InMobi and started the Nudge Foundation. That was 2015.
Right. So, if looking back at your career, some of the alumni would say that your rise, you could call it meteoric, because you moved from several sales positions to a company like Google, which is probably
Correct.
the most sought after employer, and then InMobi, which is the most successful startup of that time, and they were successful and they were
Correct.
looked up upon by many people, and then from that, being in that meteoric rise, to make this drastic change that I won't be chasing numbers, which also means profits and stuff like that anymore, and I will get into the social sector, might have some powerful moments you might have experienced that made that transition happen. So is there one or two things that because I know that you have spoken in the past that social sector was always in your mind. It's not like one night there was a realization, and the way Gautam Buddha walked out of his house, it was not like that for you. but were there specific incidents that or things that you would like to recall?
See, I think more than a specific trigger moment to transition, I feel, like I said, the ISB final term assignment that almost incidentally exposed me to the joy of meaningful work. This volunteering assignment when I entered my 30s with this non-profit where I joined as a volunteer and a donor, they asked me to take the chair position for the non-profit. Suddenly, the responsibility is given to you as a chairperson to now support the non-profit. That was behind me, and when the InMobi journey was sort of at a point where I felt that the growth was steep, as you said, right? A very, very steep journey. After a while, you realize that more of the same is not something where you're getting the kick out of, right? You'll add a zero to the revenues, you'll add a zero to profits, you'll add a couple of zeros to valuations. But once you have seen that, you feel like, look, more of the same is not going to be exciting. And I think we had also, to be honest, reached a point where I felt that if I make a decision now, it won't mean any real sacrifice on the family front on how the life is moving.
Right.
All of us over time accumulate far more than our needs
Right.
and start meeting our wants more and more and more. They keep evolving, there is no end to it. I think somewhere I reached a certain, in the middle of madness of building a startup, a calm that life needs are okay. It won't really impact your family if you make the decision.
Right.
And that confidence really allows you to be free from that front and say, okay, what do you really want to do?
Right.
And that part was never like a worry for me. Like I knew what I wanted to do. I was just not feeling confident enough about that to make the shift. And I think been very fortunate to see that I joined Google when Google was in its very early days in India.
Right.
So you see a company, globally successful company, grow as a startup in a country, build a unicorn out of sort of small little setup that you had earlier. And I think these journeys gave me the confidence that, look, I can pick up something new and build something out of it. And that's how the Nudge was born.
Great. And as an alumni, I can testify that all of us are inspired by the fact that you're taking what I can call the meat of your professional career to solve social issues after having done such a great job in your corporate career. So tell me a little bit about the Nudge Foundation, about what your aims are. I know poverty alleviation is one of the goals. Why don't you speak a little bit about what the Nudge Foundation is and what you're trying to do here?
When we started the Nudge, Abhishek, the only thing I really knew is that I at a core individual level, coming from a place of relatively speaking higher empathy, want to be helpful to others. And you look at like who are the others that you want to be helpful to, more to find meaning to your own life. I felt that people who have been relatively underprivileged did not get the lottery sort of birth that we all got. That privilege is a little bit a thorn in your existence, right? Like, what did I do to have sort of a safe life, a lucky career, and things like that? And we chose poverty alleviation as a cause that Nudge would focus on. I'm not an educator or a doctor to say, okay, education or health will be my cause, right? We just went very first principles, like any startup is built to say, okay, we want to serve the poor. And I said, okay, so but where are the poor? Should we go rural? Should we stay urban? And we decided to stay urban in the beginning, where people are around us that we want to work with and understand their life. So first 4 to 5 months of the Nudge was we spending time in slums and communities in Bangalore, a little bit in Delhi. And the more we spent time in slums and communities, we started realizing that the young people in these communities was the most important audience to work with. They were either unemployed, unemployable, or underemployed.
Right.
But the comfort and a sense that the life is going in the right direction was missing.
Right.
So we said we'll work with the young people in urban slums, get them to be skilled and employable, put them in jobs as the starting thing for the Nudge.
Right.
So Nudge started focusing on that in its first year. Over the journey of building the skilling for the young people, we started reflecting on this journey, saying, okay, where is it going? What are the issues? And I realized that the problem is not that people don't know how to skill young people or how to educate people or how to build roads in India.
Right.
Right? It is not a technology miss or something like
Lack
that.
of
Right?
know-how.
The problem is that the talent and capital required to solve these problems in the country is missing. Where are the people who are looking at the problems of India's youth to be skilled and employed? Where are the people looking at the problems of poverty in India to be solved deeply? Where is the capital to solve it? Now, obviously, when you look at the sector, there are really, really amazing people in the non-profit sector, far more inspiring than you can find in the corporate world.
Absolutely.
But is that volume of talent enough to solve the scale of the problem we have? The answer is we are far away from the scale of talent we need. So talent and capital became like the thing I started obsessing about in the second year of the nudge.
Understood.
And we started evolving from just skilling initiatives we were doing to solve for talent in the non-profit sector. And over time, capital in the non-profit sector that ended up becoming this other journey of mine through Give India.
Understood. So the last 6 years or is it 7 years in the social sector, because the change has been 6.5. The change has been from the beginning, as you say. So what do you think of your impact in the nudge's impact in the social sector? How do you look back at what work you have done in the past, and how do you, for lack of a better word, measure your impact?
Yeah, see, the currency of impact is a function of what you do, right? So all the programs that we are running have very different ways of looking at impact. For Give India part of my work, it is very simple because we are increasing giving in the country, and that giving is going and kind of doing various different things on the ground through various non-profits. When I picked up the mandate of Give India, we were donating about 29 crores a year. This year, even though it is very COVID impacted like last year as well, we will be donating around 1,000 crores.
Wow.
So in 4 years, we have gone from donating 29 crores a year to 47 to 70 to 290 to 1,000 crores this year. So it's been extremely satisfying journey of seeing the impact of your work. Now it is not just the amount that's important. It is COVID year, and India never needed sort of social entrepreneurs to be on their feet more than what we have seen in the last 1 year. So being able to get 40,000 oxygen concentrators and cylinders in the country, 100 plus oxygen generation plants for people, for hospitals, cash relief program to the families of COVID deceased, close to about 30,000 rupees per family to large number of people who lost their loved ones to COVID, food and dry rations to tens of lakhs of people across the country in the last 2 years has been extremely important and meaningful sort of piece of work that we were able to do through Give India. Through the nudge journey, cumulatively we have, through our direct and indirect work, because we help other NGOs do their work as well, we have been able to reach, touch, impact, whatever you want to call it, about 16 million people or so.
Wow.
Across the country, across 16 states, through 3 different centers that we run. So we run a center for skill development that has skilled about 19,000 people directly, along with the work we do with other agencies and help their journeys as well. Through Center for Rural Development, we have 80,000 rural households that we are helping in UP, in Jharkhand and beyond on goat free, poultry, and having extremely poor tribal communities come out of extreme poverty.
Right.
Through our Center for Social Innovation, we have graduated more than 80 non-profit entrepreneurs through our programs already. Many of them are Forbes 30 under 30 Asia. Many of them are working with governments in many, many states. And they themselves have collectively served more than 15-16 million people. So that's how we look at the impact of the nudge over the last 6 years.
Right. So it's a nodal agency with a lot of branches spreading its impact over.
That's correct.
Nice. And I have seen in the past how you address the need for talent in the social sector in a systematic manner. You speak about, I think you're also running certain initiatives where corporate people can take sabbaticals and work in the social sector and things like that. But tell me a little bit about, so when, and I know in social sector, at least as I understand it, it's a matter of social change.
That's correct.
And society needs to undergo a certain amount of change in order to address things correctly, like you have said in the past. that we usually pay more attention to problems that are more valuable and make more money than problems that are more important. So how do you look at this change aspect that needs to happen in the society, and what do you think is the role of companies like you, philanthropists and governments and even society at large? How do you think we should?
It's a very one complex and very important question. Let me gather my thought. It's a very interesting one. See, what I feel, Abhishek, is you remember the kids of 60s, 70s, 50s in India, everybody wanted to take a government job. The reason why that was happening is that the private enterprise ecosystem was very limited, and all the safety of life was coming from government jobs. It changed from there to saying IT industry is growing, there are jobs in the market, and people started saying it's not that private sector jobs, suddenly you are jobless next day morning, right? There are stable jobs in private sector. Tatas, Birlas, so many larger institution builders in the country are giving stable jobs with almost all the benefits of government and more. So the fancy for the talent market in the country shifted from safe government jobs to private sector jobs. Within private sector jobs, computer science jobs were not the most lucrative. Mechanical, electrical were considered the safe choices.
Right.
But it shifted. What is happening now is a different phenomena. So government sector to private sector. Private sector jobs have now started looking like less interesting and lucrative, and the best talent is saying, I want to do my own startup.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship was actually considered very risky. Like, are you out of your minds to be doing a startup?
Just
do a good job, you won't get married, तुम्हें नौकरी नहीं मिली college में. But now it's understood that it's high risk, but insanely high return and the fastest way to learn.
Right.
Even a failed entrepreneur is 10x more valuable to any company than a routine job career. Now, as we have gone from government jobs to private jobs to entrepreneurship, as societies become more and more wealthy, solving any problem is not good enough.
Right.
Solving important problems that the society is facing is key. So I really hope that India evolves from entrepreneurship being the coolest thing to do to social entrepreneurship being the coolest thing to do.
Wow.
Won't it be awesome if you are able to reduce the malnourishment rate in the country, the stunted kids, the problem of trafficking, Delhi smog, Bombay floods, Bangalore groundwater and lakes, education in government schools across the country, public health infrastructure that is in huge need for upgrade and support. These are really important problems for India. But the talent that is coming out, whether you are an engineer, doctor, lawyer, artist, journalist, management graduate, no matter who you are, if talent starts looking at important problems and not just how lucrative it is to solve that problem, you will start to see very interesting things happen if that's how we do it. I feel it won't happen on its own. It's sort of easy to sort of in a romantic sense imagine that it will shift from entrepreneurship to social entrepreneurship.
Right.
But reality is that that shift is not easy. Our society has valued having money a lot, which is true globally as well, right? But unless society places value to building a society where everybody is given equal opportunity, equitable society for everyone, a just society, right? We won't see it go there. We all have seen sort of how in Three Idiots, this narrative of saying parental pressure to have everyone become an engineer was highlighted.
Right.
And now everybody understands that let kids do what they are good at, what they want to do, follow your passion, where is your ikigai and all that. The reality is that if society is putting value on making money, a person's ikigai has a societal pressure, not just parental pressure to make money. Right? If society starts valuing, like if Abhishek looks cooler because he's solving a social problem over somebody else who's not solving a social problem, even if you are solving it at a unicorn scale and somebody else doing a decacorn scale, this is more important.
Right.
We have to place that value as society on importance of problem solving. And then you will see more and more young people feel inspired to do that. And even spotlight on our work as Naj in this conversation are the kind of things that need to happen for people to feel like it is normal.
Right.
To do these things. So I really feel that there is work to be done at a society level to place value here. But even from governments and market standpoint, increasingly for government to create solving social problems viable is key.
Right.
And there is taxpayers' money to do it. Government has to build roads to villages that don't have economic activity. It's taxpayers' money that makes that roads. It is needed, and we have to invest disproportionately there to build the infrastructure for future generations. Markets also have to now start putting value on this work. ESG frameworks are coming, CSR law is there, so we have made progress in this direction. But what we also need to do is, as markets start putting investments in this ecosystem, trade off your IRR maximization to impact as an equation, as a variable in that equation of impact. And we are starting to see a lot of impact investors coming and starting to do that.
Right.
So I'm very bullish, with where we are. I really think that given where India is, it's a very unique opportunity that in a generation that we are in, we can imagine India to be poverty free within our lifetimes. Opportunity that I don't think any other generation before us in India's independent history had.
Wow. That's a big statement to make, that you believe that India can be poverty free. It's really great that you're talking about ending poverty in India within our lifetimes. But I really resonate with what you said, that society has placed, according to many of us, disproportionate amount of importance on how much money you make and disproportionately less importance. But if you look at the IAS, for example, a lot of them are motivated by making impact, and it gets the cream of the talent in India. But it's just that those opportunities don't exist in the private sector, and it's great that you are creating those opportunities in the private sector, and your companies like you are going to make space for talent to also contribute in a systematic manner in this area. Thank you for sharing that, but that's a pretty big statement you're making, that India can be poverty free within our generation. So I mean, you must have really thought about it, and I'm assuming that. Why don't you speak a little bit more about it?
Yeah. See, when India got its independence in 1947, we were a country of about 400 million people. Our poverty rate was 70%. Today, we are obviously 1.4 billion people, 1.395 billion people, but we have reduced our poverty rate to be at 30%. 30% of India is poor now, which is roughly landing at about 400 to 500 million people. Numbers are all over given the COVID situation here, but roughly that is the range of the number of people in poverty in India. If you look at how many people in India got out of poverty between 2005 to 2015, that official number is around 272 to 273 million people. So imagine the resources India has in a decade, yes, right? So if in one decade we were able to pull 270 million people out of poverty, with the resources we have in 2021, entering 2022, with 400-500 million people, I really think that it is well within India's means today, that by the time India hits 100 years of its independence, in 25 years from now, we are in our 75th year of India's independence. Can we not in 25 years pull 500 million people out of poverty if in a decade we have done 270 million people?
Right.
So it is not out of whack to imagine that. Will it happen on its own? We don't know. But is that an aspirational goal to take? I think it is a very realistic goal to take. Between government, markets, philanthropists, foundations, corporates, CSR, NGOs, civil society, how awesome will it be to land at 100 years of India's independence saying, in 100 years since we got independent, we have no poor in the country.
Wow.
So, and I feel at Najin Give India, even if you're a small grain of sand in that journey, that'll be a super awesome way to spend your life.
I'm sure you're more than a small grain of sand. What really brings to my mind about this is India also is a society that is capable of massive transformation. So for example, we moved from having probably 3 or 4 children per generation per couple to a sustainable 2 point something digits of childbirth within one generation. And Morarji Desai spoke about all the campaigns that they ran, Hum Do, Hamare Do, and he spoke famously about not doing all the work themselves, but enrolling all the private organizations with the right motivation
Correct.
to talk about Hum Do Hamare Do, care for the girl child and stuff. And there you see such programs being so successful. So I can relate to, and also the way we became self-sufficient in terms of agriculture, being
Correct.
dependent on foreign nations for our food grains, but now producing more than what we need completely.
Correct.
So I'm completely convinced of the capability of society. But what do you think? So do you think there is space for more people like the Nudge Foundation? Would you like more people to come? And what should somebody who is
Thinking seriously about taking up social entrepreneurship, think about, according to your perspective, what should they think, or what from the Nudge Foundation's experience would you like to hand over to them?
Very interesting question, Abhishek. See, there is a set of NGOs who think of themselves as additive to what is already happening. Let us say government is providing education, public health, food to poor. Not everybody can be touched by the government systems given the size of the country. As long as you are feeding X people, you are adding to that, right? This is supplementing government's work. That is one way of thinking. All service delivery NGOs fall in this bucket. The other end is to go back and say that, look, government is doing something, but as taxpayers, it is anyway a role that as civil society we have given to government to solve the nation's societal problems. So instead of we doing it, how can we support government to be more effective?
Right.
So you provide public policy inputs. When you don't like what government is doing, you raise your concern, like what we saw farmers do during farm laws. So there are between activism, advocacy, policy, research, you are influencing government or supporting government to be more effective.
Right.
These are two ends. I think there is a third way, which is what we have learned at the Nudge. And you gave a very nice example of Hum Do Hamare Do and how as a country we became sort of a country where the population growth rates were sort of controlled to feed the nation. You talked about the green revolution part of India going from food deficient to being food surplus. There is white revolution example of how Korean and many others sort of built this large scale white revolution. There is microfinance ecosystem built out as well, which came from a grassroots innovation and became very large. There is polio eradication that happened in 2011 in India. We call these large-scale social transformations. NGOs can play very thoughtfully a role of a catalyst, orchestrator, enabler, influencer of these large-scale social changes. Aadhaar is a very good example where Nandan spent so many years of his life to build this amazing railroad for the country on which so many social services can sit. So I personally think that these large-scale social transformations on their own do not happen unless somebody comes in. That somebody could be a government entity, it could be a philanthropist, it could be a non-profit entrepreneur who comes in and actually shifts the balance and makes something viable which can then scale.
Right.
So non-profit should increasingly play the role of this catalyst for large-scale social change and not just be okay with doing what government is anyway doing at a small scale and feel good about their identity, or on the other end purely sort of influence government to do great work, which is a very slow process of change, but somewhere playing the role along with it.
Right. And it is interesting that you're bringing Nandan's example because he actually brought his experience and capability in software and brought an innovation at a national scale that is going to have long-term positive impact for everybody else.
That's correct.
And you also speak quite regularly about need for talent in the social sector.
Yeah.
So what do you think the social sector can do to attract, and what do you think the social sector can do to attract more ISBNs, for example, to choose this as one of their career paths?
Yeah. See, at Nudge, what we do, Abhishek, is there are talent across the seniority levels, experience levels, and various kinds of talent, not just management graduates. What we do is we started supporting the non-profit entrepreneurs in 2016, and we launched it in 2017 as a non-profit incubator. So if somebody has a non-profit idea, cause they care about, and the guy is very talented, we bring them in, we support them in small amounts of money, and we support their journey through mentors and everything else, like any sort of very good incubator. Over time, we have now expanded that effort to have a non-profit launchpad for idea stage NGOs. incubator for MVP stage NGOs and an accelerator for growth stage NGOs. So we support the journey of a non-profit entrepreneur for many, many years from zero.
I have seen you have borrowed the startup terminology for MVP and growth stage companies.
And this is for the non-profit entrepreneurs. We also realize that there is executive talent that is looking to move to social sector, especially post-COVID, who also wants to come and contribute, but they may not be ready to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
So we started Indian Administrative Fellowship with the government of Karnataka, where these senior executives with an average of 24 years of experience come in and they work with senior bureaucrats in Karnataka state and look at meaningfully large problems with government machinery support to try to solve problems there. So that is what we do for executive talent. Similarly, we realize that the engineering talent, the innovation talent may not be ready to become a fellow, senior fellow, nor they may be ready to become entrepreneurs, but they want to contribute.
Right.
So we do something called the Nudge Prize. It's a platform where we throw a grand challenge. We've all heard of Elon Musk's grand challenges, X Prize, Hult Prize, and many other global challenges. We throw these challenges to talent, and they organize themselves in teams, apply for it. And grand challenges have a very, very strong inherent gravitational force. Like if I throw a challenge at you, you want to solve it. And if it is thrown with the prize money, that makes it viable to solve for it. If it gives you a lot of social pride that, look, you are the winners of that challenge,
right.
Talent comes in. So we run Nudge Prizes thanks to Cisco as a partner. We run a Cisco Agri Challenge where you create farmer-centric innovations to double the income of small farmers.
Right.
So we support all kinds of talent to come into the social sector to do this. The question of ISBNs, I actually feel ISB has a very thriving net impact club. ISB also has many entrepreneurs in social sector, and many people who post ISB have chosen to join non-profits. Between Nudge and Give India, we already have 7 ISBNs. So we hire a lot of ISBNs. But along with Nudge, I know many non-profits in the sector look for talent like ISBNs to come and meaningfully contribute to their journey. The jobs in the social sector, in non-profit sector, are not unviable anymore.
Right.
They may not be the path of money maximization,
Right.
but they are still a path of comfortable means and insanely meaningful work with equally complex, if not more complex problems. With great joy.
Yes.
What more do you want to
Absolutely.
Do with your time?
Absolutely. In fact, Teach for India is also a good example. You know,
Yes.
a lot of my classmates, at least one of my classmates from ISB, quit their corporate jobs to go for Teach for India Fellowship, the 2-year program that they have.
That's good.
So it's actually very inspiring to hear from you that, you know, such kind of, number one, that there are opportunities available for Alan.
Yeah.
And also, number two, that in the future you foresee more and more talent coming into solving difficult and important social problems. And even ISB alumni can participate in that. But let me bring you back to the 1 year that you spent at ISB and the friendships that you made at ISB. How did that impact you, and does it still continue to impact you in your life? I would like to know that. I think all the alumni are quite curious about that.
Yeah. See, ISB is one of the most important years of my life, which is true, I'm sure, for most of the ISB alumni. For me in particular, it did 2 things. One, it exposed me to the kind of breadth I had not seen in my purely sort of sales and engineering career before. Because people come with experience at ISB, for the first time you have an ex-investment banking analyst in your sort of SV living with you. You have somebody from FMCG, somebody is a brand guy. That diversity of talent, skills, sectors was very inspiring. Equally important was the diversity of perspectives that the classmates and the peers brought.
Right.
And I think that diversity of looking at life beyond what you had seen before was very empowering for me in one way. So that was one. As I said, right, my first social sector stint happened in ISB final term. That itself was like such a big deal for me. I think the second thing that ISB did for me was that it gave me a sort of a different sense of confidence to face life, knowing that you are sort of amongst the best and smartest people across the country.
Yeah.
From there, the opportunities that open up are very interesting post ISB.
Yeah.
And I think both the breadth that I got at ISB and the confidence to sort of face life and get shit done and be out in the world was very interesting and inspiring for me. So these two things are very special for me. Friends at ISB, I'm sure all of us have made lifelong friends at ISB. I relatively had a much smaller friend circle than most people at ISB and even now. But I should say that I have been extremely pleasantly surprised with how the depth of that connection was. When I started my nudge journey, the first two individual donors were my classmates from ISB. Most people don't want us to name them when they are being philanthropic, but two classmates came forward and supported. As we have made this nudge journey, as of today, I have close to about 10 ISB alums, mostly from my batch, a couple from other batches, who are actually annual donors of the nudge even today.
Nice.
So a lot of where we are with the nudge and a bit with Give India, we mentioned a common friend, Shailesh, from my batch. He serves on the board of Give India in UK.
Yes.
And many other ISB classmates are annual donors. So I don't think this journey would have been possible without ISB or ISBians or ISB classmates.
Absolutely, and it's like a tectonic shift, when you enter ISB and you come out of ISB, your mind is like changed. So I can completely identify with that. Before we close, I'd like to ask you, how can more alumni contribute to your organizations and to your missions? So if alumni watching, they would want to contribute and support, what can they do and how can they go about it?
See, from an alum standpoint, I feel that both giving time in terms of advisory, volunteering, coming on the boards of non-profit is a great way to give. And the second is giving money. And both are important. So I would actually urge that what is not important is whether you choose money over volunteering, advice over cash. But what is very important is to make a start. I have realized how much meaning impactful work adds to your life. And I feel that all ISB alums, all human beings in general as well, we all care about so many things, right? Whether you care about climate change or pets, human rights or education, healthcare or skilling, we all care about so many things. To me, the biggest thing was making the start, right? Taking the first step. So I would urge every ISBN to pick any cause that you care about, find any non-profit that is easiest in terms of access for you, the one that you can trust, and start supporting in any small way possible. And as they say, right, the journey of a million steps starts with the first, right? So take the first one, and I think it will land wherever your life's part of your life's purpose is. So.
Great, Atul. Let's hope that more and more alumni get to know more about your plans in detail through this interview, and more are excited and inspired, like I am, to support in the Nudge's journey of success and the whole country's journey towards poverty alleviation within our lifetime.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming with us, and it was very nice meeting you. Thank you for a very warm welcome, and all the very best.
Thanks.